What's up my dudes, and welcome back to PLB Green. Today I'm going to be walking you through the bonsai scam that I think most nurseries do to try and sell trees as bonsais at really high cost. Now, a lot of the time these tiny little bonsai trees are very young, they're not very mature, their trunks are really small. Here's a few examples here. Oh, a scam. Yup, scam. 80 bucks, scam. 70 bucks for a Japanese box, scam. Scam. These are scams. Look at that scam. They're scam. And they go for really high prices. If you go to most nurseries and ask the staff if there's any plants on sale, a lot of the time they have different types of trees for low prices. Perhaps the plants have outgrown their pot or they haven't been watered in a while. I always go to these sections in the nurseries and I pick up bargains. The reason being, you can spend a fifth of the price that a bonsai would cost in a nursery on a pretty well-established tree. Yesterday I picked up these 3 New Zealand Christmas trees and they were on sale. They've got really thick trunks. They were in the bargain bin section. The original sale price was $26.99 or $27 AUD. They were marked down to $6.95 each. And check out the trunk on this guy. I picked up 3 that had a lot of shape and character to them. Really well established trunk, a lot of mature bark, some nice curvature to it. Just a really nice looking tree, which is quite mature. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you the difference between buying a tiny nursery bonsai at $70 compared to buying a sale tree for $7 and show you the end products and how they compare. Stick around. Now, before I do too much to the tree, I really need to check out its root base and see where the roots start, how far this trunk goes down into the soil and things like that before I can make big decisions with the branches. I can take off some of these really tall branches like these ones up here. I know the tree isn't going to be this tall, so I can take off these higher branches without too much thinking or concern yet. You know, just giving myself wiggle room up here to work with the tree. And this way, when I use my root rake to comb out the roots, the tree won't be as top heavy, and I will have an easier time getting it to stand up in its new pot. Handy dandy root rake. Got my tree cut down in size, so now I'm just going to squeeze the pot, grab it by the base of the trunk and see if it comes out, and it does. Now, as you can see, there's quite a lot of roots here, and this is the reason I think this particular tree was in the bargain bin, because it was ready for a repot. It just looks like it's a little bit root bound. It's not too bad, and it looks like the roots are still nice and healthy. So the fact that it has a lot of roots will give us a lot of options. Starting at the top, I'm just going to gently rake out from the trunk in a radial kind of pattern. Looks like there's some thicker roots here. What? Look at this guy. Dude. Come back to that in a minute. So I'm just slowly making my way around the tree and revealing where the root plane on the tree actually is or could be. It's like opening a Christmas present. You never know what you can get. Could be anything. Some of these roots are getting pulled off, but the roots that are getting that are snapping and getting pulled off are the roots that are going, I guess, perpendicular from the tree, and we want the ones that are coming out in a radial pattern, kind of like a clock. Now, I should be going from the inside and up, working my way around. don't think I'm going to need the roots this low down. There's a lot of roots on this tree. Work my way around the tree. Once it gets to a certain level, I can just use my garden hose to rinse off the rest of the soil outside. Here she is in all her glory. I've rinsed all the soil out with a garden hose. You'll notice that I've got this bucket on hand full of water. So as I'm going to root prune this tree, every now and then, because it's a really hot day, I'm just going to dunk the roots in this water just to make sure that they're not drying out and that the tree doesn't get affected or doesn't lose too much water. The next step is to get this guy planted. So I've got this old terracotta pot. It's got a lot of patina on it. It looks great. I love these pots. They're quite cheap, but they have a nice kind of look to them, and you know, they're not the final pot for the tree, but they're good training pots. So that's my front, all that patina, and I've got my drainage mesh in here. So I'm going to put a base layer of soil in. I think I'd like to keep this kind of curve and then going up into a main trunk up here and bringing it out like that. So I'd like to plant it like this. The only problem with that is a lot of these roots are sticking straight up, which isn't the worst. This large curly root here I kind of want to use as a feature root. I think that'd be kind of cool. Some people don't like feature roots or weird roots that stick out of the soil, but each to their own. I think they add an element to the tree which is unique. So I'm going to try and plant it on an angle just like this. I think I'm going to have to wire this tree into the pot because this pot lays flush, the hole lays flush with the base pretty much. I'm just going to put a couple of these little stickies on, and these are just going to lift the pot ever so slightly so it won't get wonky when a bonsai wire is sticking through it. So I'll put 4 of those on. The next step will be getting some wire. This is medium wire. So if you can see there, I've got these 2 wires coming up. They're just from the drainage hole, and the wire is down here below. And I'm just going to strap the tree in. Now, these roots that are going to the bottom, I want to push down and bend so they're not quite at such an abrupt angle. Now, I'm not usually a massive fan of wiring trees, but for this one, because the angle is going to be pretty extreme and I want to put pressure on those bottom roots so they redirect, I think it's going to be necessary. I got my Pops inherited pliers. I got these off my late Pop. And they're very, very old. And I'm just going to grab these 2 wires and start to twist them. I want the tree to be pretty angled. Yeah, kind of like that. And then you just pinch them and twist. I don't want to make it too tight, because I don't want the wires starting to cut in to the roots in the lower trunk. But I want it tight enough that it's going to kind of stabilize the tree like that. And I'll just bend the rest down And that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to go ahead and fill in the rest of the soil. Thanks, Popsol pliers. Perfect, my dude. You want to fill in all the air pockets around the roots. You can just use your fingers, but if some of the roots are really fine, just grab a chopstick or a pair of tweezers and poke around until you feel the air pockets kind of filling up. You can kind of sense it with your fingertips. The tree is now at a point where I would normally add rocks to the planting to help stabilize the tree mainly, but it can also make the tree look great by giving it a bit of like a landscape. In this case, obviously the rocks don't need to be here for stability purposes, but definitely a landscaping vibe. Rock. The reason I put the rocks in before I finish the soil is if there's a little bit of soil around the rocks, the base of the rocks, it looks like they've been there for a much longer time than they have. Whereas if you just plonk the rocks down on top of the soil, it looks like you've just plonked them on top of the soil. Make sure your soil is below, well and truly below the lip of the pot, so when you're watering your trees, soil doesn't spill out over the top. See how the rocks look a little bit more embedded into the landscape when you bury a centimeter or so along their base. The smaller rocks, obviously you just wiggle them down. If you put these ones in too early, they just sink down and get lost in the soil. Say hello to my little friend! This is how I tidy up in Pilby Green. Oh, goddamn! Pruning, I'm going to start with some easy decisions, like cutting off branches that are impeding on other branches, giving each branch its own space in the sun, cutting off some branches on the inside of a curve. So the trunk of the tree comes up here, curves around, and this branch here comes right out just where the curve is, and we don't want that. It doesn't look great, so take that off. This branch is also really damaged. I'm not sure if it was in transit or when I was cleaning the roots, but that one can come off too. Not sure there. That's a dead branch. Now, most of the foliage and branches come up and go that way. I might need to wire just a couple of branches so there's a little bit more of a wider canopy to the tree. See how these are all sticking up and going that way? See if I can bring them down. A couple of them here. Yeah, I'm going to do that. But the first thing I have to address is this giant chungus. Look at this branch here. It's almost an extension of the trunk. And that's the front of the tree, and I have to decide whether or not I want to keep that. I can definitely take off some of these upper parts of it, like there, and also there. So as I mentioned before, see how this branch here, even though it's not at the front, it's kind of towards the back, but it's growing in towards the center of the tree. And at this early stage, just don't really want that. There. Already looking better. Less congested. These two branches here are just growing in and crossing over each other. So I'll take this one off first. Clean that up. And this one too. This guy in here is growing in towards the center. Take that off. And then just come over with my bonsai scissors. Another branch on the inside of a curve. That one growing in towards the middle. And now you can sort of start to see a bit more of the branch structure and the trunk. A bit more of that movement, which I really like. This tree has a lot of movement to it, which is kind of why I chose it. This branch back here is pretty chunky, and I don't think it adds much. It impedes there. I'm going to take this big fat one off. Oh, this is big cut coming up right here. Sometimes sacrifices need to be made. Big decision, big cut. Oh, dude, that's a tree in itself. Whoa, that's totally changed the whole tree. For the better. For the better. Just gonna clean this up a bit. I'm not an expert wirer of bonsais. I don't usually like to wire my trees. I like the clip and grow kind of approach. I just feel like wiring doesn't, like there's no effort in it in terms of achievements towards the, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I guess you can make an instant bonsai that looks beautiful with wires, which is fine, but I'm a fan of the grind and making a tree look good over time through its natural growth pattern. So yeah, so far so good. This branch is kind of coming towards the viewer, but I'm not opposed to it. I like this dipping branch here. It's cool. Let's clean some of these off. This is too long and doesn't taper at all. Should I take that entire thing off? The answer is yes. Another chungus cut. Here we go. God damn. Looks good though, much better. I've just got some black electrical tape going to get a little bit of it. And just to be super careful, I'm just going to wrap it around the base of the branch that I wired, because I did hear it crack a little bit, and I don't want this branch to die, so I want to lock in the moisture. Let's move up into the upper canopies. I've decided not to wire this branch here. It is very straight and there's no taper to it, but I can work with it, or I can take the entire thing off. Let's take it off. Man goes crazy. Huh! Oh God. Oh, actually, that's actually great. That off. And when you clip these upper branches, just try and find an outward facing leaf. So the branch that grows in always grows in from a leaf node and will grow in that direction. So instead of it growing towards the center of the tree, we want them kind of growing out. I'm in the zone, man. Big cut here. I know it seems drastic. I'm taking quite a lot of foliage off here, but we are at the start of summer here in Australia, so this tree should bounce back pretty quickly. This branch here is sticking straight up. Bye. And that one's impeding there. That's a tough call. There are no outward facing. I would love a leaf on this side coming out this way, but not gonna happen. Here, yeah. One of those two. This hanging branch doesn't look great. And then here, this guy. Now we're getting somewhere. I think we're almost there. Take this one off. I'm actually quite happy with that. That's looking great. Here she is. Looking pretty good. The trunk, which gets a lot thicker a little bit under the soil, I kept under there because I'm going to wait for the root base to kind of build up its strength again. But I'll give you a full rotation. And as the tree reestablishes, I will be able to take the soil level down and kind of show off that buttress trunk, the thickness of the trunk. That's just under the soil for now. So, here we have my $7 bonsai. Now I'm going to show you two examples of bonsais that were given to me as gifts, and these were bought at a nursery. The first one is this Turkish oak. Now I really like this tree because I don't have any oaks. This is my only oak, in fact. But apart from that, it's not that great. It would have cost at least $50 to $70. Comes in this kind of cheap pot. It's got quite a thick trunk, but you know, Compared to this one over here, it's nowhere near as thick, nowhere near as established, and yeah, for the price, I think this one is much better. Here's another one with a little rockery at the back. This one would have cost $50, and look, it's a nice composition. It's cute. It's got these dragonstone rocks at the back, which are stuck into the pot, but the pot's pretty cheap. And look at the trunk thickness and maturity of the tree compared to this giant guy over here, who was a fraction of the price. I actually managed to purchase 3 of these New Zealand Christmas bushes. This was the first one that I did with you guys, and I made 2 more. Each of them cost me $7, and I've got this guy here who's got a really nice curvature to its trunk. That's the front there. And this one, which isn't as nice, but, you know, still has a lot of potential to it. That was my 3rd one. Each of them a fraction of the price compared to those tiny little stock bonsais that you buy at nurseries. Each of these have a thick trunk. They're well established, and they're on their way to becoming pretty nice trees, I think. Time to put them back on the shelf. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Peel Be Green.